What Hitler planned to do. If he won the war, Hitler was convinced he would win. The Nazis didn't start World War II by accident. They truly wanted to build a new world, a fascist empire that controlled the entire planet. They had already outlined their long-term goals. And we can say with confidence, if Hitler had won, today's world would look radically different. Nothing like what we know or expect. So what would the world look like if Hitler and his allies had won? Stay with us as we explore 10 goals Hitler intended to impose on the world after victory. 10. Returning American land to native peoples. Despite being the leading force behind the genocide of non-white populations, the Nazis planned to return American lands to Native Americans after winning the war. They built relationships with the Federation of American Indians and managed to attract their attention. Some native leaders even went further and adopted Nazi ideology. One example was Red Cloud, who carved a swastika onto his clothes and called Jews children of the devil, mimicking Nazi rhetoric. But Red Cloud was actually a fake identity created by a Portland lawyer named Aelbot Tunay, who was Native American himself. The real historical Red Cloud had died in 1909. The Nazis supported these extremists and even labeled Native Americans as Aryans. Germany sent agents to the United States to convince native groups to rise against the US government. In return, the Nazis promised to restore their lands. Whether that promise was real or not didn't matter. Many native people listened. With Hitler's backing, Red Cloud claimed he had formed a militia of 1,500 native fighters ready to help the Nazis once they reached America, divide the country into several regions, and restore native rule. Nine. Building a giant orbital mirror, sun gun. This was one of Hitler's strangest and most terrifying ideas. A 1.6-kilometer space mirror orbiting Earth at 35,900 kilometers per hour. Imagine a child using a magnifying glass to burn ants. That was the concept. Whenever any region angered the Nazis, they wouldn't need armies. They would simply aim the mirror and let concentrated sunlight burn entire cities, farmlands, and populations to ash. They also planned to use the mirror as a space station. The scientist behind the idea, Hermann Oberth, believed in it so much he continued pushing it even after the war, trying to convince Americans to build it. If the Nazis had won, this sun gun would likely have been constructed, and humanity would have lived in constant fear of being roasted from the sky. Eight. A prosperous East Asia under Japanese rule. What Hitler planned to do. If he won the war, Hitler was convinced he would win. The Nazis didn't start World War II by accident. They truly wanted to build a new world, a fascist empire that controlled the entire planet. They had already outlined their long-term goals. And we can say with confidence, if Hitler had won, today's world would look radically different, nothing like what we know or expect. So what would the world look like if Hitler and his allies had won? Stay with us as we explore 10 goals Hitler intended to impose on the world after victory. 7. Creating a new defensive wall on Japan's border. Although Germany and Japan were allies, the Nazis were certain they would eventually go to war with Japan. So they planned ahead. Their solution? Send massive numbers of German settlers to the eastern borders of the Japanese Empire. Each man who had served the Nazis for 12 years would receive a farm, a rifle, and an order to have as many children as possible. Single men were expected to marry local women, change the genetics of the region, and create a generation of half-German children. Hitler ordered that each man must father at least 7 children. Six. Turning the US and Britain against each other. Despite promising Native Americans he had no plans for the US, Hitler publicly stated he had no interest in invading America, comparing it to invading the moon. But when Americans ignored his words, he changed his tone, declaring deep hatred toward them and calling them the product of Jews and slaves. Before the US entered the war, Hitler was convinced America and Britain would eventually clash. Even after the US joined the war, the long-term Nazi plan was to eliminate Britain first. He believed the US would eventually attack Britain. Britain would then dissolve America. And if they didn't destroy each other, the Third Reich would annihilate them both. The Nazis swore that both nations would be wiped from the map. 5. Enslaving Eastern Europe. The Holocaust wasn't the end of Nazi genocide plans. The next target was the Slavic peoples of Eastern Europe. The Nazis believed Slavs and their culture had to be erased. The first step, eliminating any Russian leaders who might inspire resistance. If Germany had conquered Russia, they planned to deport 31 million Slavs to Siberian labor camps, where most would die from starvation and forced labor. The rest would be sold as slaves. Their lands would be given to 10 million German settlers to plant the seeds of the pure race. Within 30 years, 50 million Slavs were to be killed or enslaved. Eastern Europe was meant to be wiped out. Four. Shooting Gandhi and reshaping India. In 1938, before the war, Hitler told Britain's Foreign Office to attack Gandhi, and if that didn't work, assassinate several Indian leaders to suppress unrest. Hitler saw Indians as worthless and believed they must remain under Aryan control. His hatred for India also created opportunities for others. An Indian leader named Subhas Chandra Bose went to Berlin, asking German support for a revolt against Britain. But Hitler's racism prevented him from helping. So Bose turned to Japan, which agreed to support him and planned to add India to its East Asian empire. Hitler disliked Japan's move, but if a German-Japanese war broke out later and Germany won, Hitler planned to teach India a harsh lesson. Three. Enslaving all British men. As the war intensified, Britain refused to join Germany. Hitler grew furious and drafted a plan for their punishment. If he conquered Britain, all males aged 17 to 45 would be forced into grueling labor camps across Europe. Women and children would remain at home to raise boys until age 17. Then they too would be shipped to the camps. All property would be confiscated. Anyone resisting would be executed on the spot. But Heinrich Himmler had an even darker idea. He believed 80% of Britain's population should be killed immediately upon conquest. 2. Allowing Muslims to rule the Middle East. Surprisingly, Hitler was a supporter of Muslim populations. He and Himmler believed Islam aligned more closely with Nazi values than Christianity did. Initially, Hitler promised control of the Middle East to Italy. But after the war began, he changed his view. He grew close to the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who told him, "Our enemies are the same: the British, the Jews, and the communists." They agreed that as soon as possible, Husseini and his fighters would exterminate all Jews in Palestine. After Italy betrayed Germany, Hitler regretted not working more closely with Muslim countries. He said, "We could have liberated the Muslims. Imagine what would have happened." If he had won, he planned to turn the Middle East into a region where fascists and Muslims lived side by side, under Nazi partnership. 1. Converting Eastern Europe to Jehovah's Witnesses. This one sounds bizarre, but it was real. Although many Nazis advocated Islam as a future imperial religion, Himmler believed Eastern Europe should convert to the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses. Even though the Nazis murdered tens of thousands of witnesses in concentration camps, Himmler respected certain aspects of their discipline. He believed that if Germany controlled their strict ideology, they would strengthen the empire. He even ordered his officers to promote this doctrine across Eastern Europe. This is the world Hitler envisioned. By the way, did you know the Nazis sterilized Romani men to stop their unclean bloodline from spreading, according to Nazi ideology? India's fate under Nazi rule was also clear: mass killing and slavery. Jews and Slavs were destined for extermination or forced labor. And despite his claimed friendship with Muslims, if Hitler had won, he would likely have hunted down non-Aryans among them too.